The city of San Francisco shimmered under the warm glow of a late morning sun. Glass towers mirrored the sky, and luxury cars glided silently across the streets below. Among them stood one man who seemed to have everything: money, fame, respect, and power. Ethan Cole, a self-made millionaire, the CEO of a rapidly growing tech empire, had built his fortune through sheer determination. But as he stepped out of his corporate building that morning, dressed in his perfect navy suit and confident stride, he had no idea his life was about to be saved. Not by security, not by fortune, but by the innocent voice of a little girl. Before we go further, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and miracles that appear in the most unexpected ways, please take a second to like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to Silent Stories, because stories like this remind us that even a small act of goodness can change everything. The morning had begun like any other for Ethan. Meetings stacked back to back, investors to impress, deadlines to meet. He had no time for distractions. He lived behind walls of glass, both literally and emotionally, where empathy had little space in his perfectly measured world. His employees feared him, competitors envied him, and he had long stopped listening to anyone but himself. Yet, destiny has its way of humbling even the most powerful hearts. Just outside his building across the courtyard sat a small food cart run by a woman named May. Her daughter Lily was always with her, a sweet little girl of about 7 with curious eyes and a soft smile. They were new to the city, having moved from China just a year earlier. Lily spent her mornings playing on the steps of Ethan's building, while her mother sold noodles and tea to office workers rushing to their jobs. Ethan had noticed them occasionally, but never once stopped. They were part of the background noise in his world. Invisible, ordinary, unimportant. That day, however, something felt slightly off. The air was thick with tension, and the usual chatter of guards near the entrance sounded quieter, heavier. Lily sat nearby playing with her doll when her attention caught something unusual. 3 of Ethan's security guards, men she often saw standing tall and silent, were huddled near the luxury black sedan, waiting by the curb. They were whispering to each other in Chinese. To most, it would have sounded like a normal conversation, but to Lily, who understood every word, it was terrifying. She heard one of them mutter, "Make sure he gets in. The timer will go off once the door closes." Her small hands froze. Another voice said, "It looks like an accident. Nobody will suspect us." Lily's heart began to race. She didn't fully understand the meaning of all their words, but she knew one thing: something bad was about to happen. And the men they were talking about was the one she had seen walk past every morning, the tall men in the blue suit. Her instincts screamed at her to run to her mother, but May was busy serving a customer. Without thinking twice, Lily stood up and ran toward the millionaire just as he was walking out of the building. Ethan barely noticed the tiny figure sprinting across the courtyard until she stopped right in front of him, breathing hard, eyes wide with fear. For a brief moment, Ethan was annoyed. "Careful, little one," he almost said, but the words caught in his throat when he saw her trembling. Lily looked up at him, her voice shaking as she said, "Don't get in your car." The simplicity of her words, the raw terror in her tone, made him pause. He frowned, confused. Behind her, the guards exchanged quick glances. "What did you say?" he asked, but Lily's voice rose. "Urgent now." They said, "Your car will explode." The words hit him like a wave of cold water. For a moment, the world around him went silent. The sounds of the street faded, and all he could hear was his own heartbeat. He turned his gaze toward the men standing near the car. They were watching him too closely. Something deep inside him, a buried instinct he hadn't felt in years, told him to listen to the child. He took a slow step back. "Everyone stop!" he shouted. The guards stiffened. One of them reached into his pocket, and Ethan's blood turned to ice. Before he could move, his head of security, a loyal man named Harris, ran forward, drawing his weapon. Within seconds, chaos erupted. Shouts, confusion, the sound of boots on pavement. Harris pulled Ethan back just as one of the suspicious guards lunged forward. Then, in a thunderous roar that shattered glass and filled the air with smoke, the car exploded. The shockwave knocked everyone to the ground. People screamed, fire alarms blared. The scene turned into chaos. Amid the smoke and panic, Ethan found himself covering the small girl with his own body, shielding her from the debris. When the flames settled, the truth became clear. The guards weren't guards at all. They were imposters hired by a rival company to eliminate him. If not for that one little girl, Ethan Cole would have been gone in seconds. In the hours that followed, the police arrived, arrests were made, and news outlets swarmed the area. But Ethan barely noticed any of it. He sat on the curb, his expensive suit torn, his hands trembling, and beside him sat Lily, her small fingers clutching his sleeve as if afraid he might disappear. When he looked into her eyes, something inside him broke open. Years of pride, loneliness, and cold success melted away, replaced by a deep, overwhelming gratitude. Later that day, when the reporters had left and the smoke had cleared, Ethan went to May's cart. He stood awkwardly for a moment before speaking. He learned that they were struggling, barely making enough to pay rent, often skipping meals so Lily could eat. That night, Ethan made a decision that would change not only their lives, but his own forever. He invited them into his company cafeteria. The next morning, and to everyone's surprise, he didn't come with bodyguards or media, just with a heart full of sincerity. He announced that May's small food business would receive full sponsorship from his company, helping her expand into a permanent restaurant. As for Lily, he promised to fund her education completely, ensuring she would never have to worry again. Word spread quickly about what had happened, about how a little girl's courage had saved a man who once believed he needed no one. Employees who once feared him began to see a different side of Ethan. The men who once measured success in millions began to measure it in moments. The smile of a child, the comfort of helping another, the peace that came from gratitude. Months later, the restaurant Lily's Garden opened in downtown San Francisco. The walls were decorated with children's drawings and warm colors. On opening day, Ethan sat at a small corner table sipping tea made by May while Lily played with her dolls nearby. He no longer wore his arrogance-like armor. He had learned that even the strongest need saving sometimes, and that the most powerful voices often come from the smallest hearts. And every morning since, before starting his day, Ethan would stop by May's restaurant, kneel down, and say to Lily with a smile, "You saved me once, little hero. Never forget the world needs more people like you." If this story touched your heart or reminded you that kindness, courage, and innocence still exist in this world, please like this video, share it with your loved ones, and subscribe to Silent Stories. Your support helps us keep spreading stories that remind the world of compassion and hope. Before you go, tell us in the comments, what would you have done if you were in Lily's place? Would you have had the courage to speak up? Sometimes the smallest voice can make the biggest difference. And that day, one little girl's voice saved a life.